Hi, I'm Casey with SavvyCat Solutions, and this video is going to be an instructional tutorial for how to create your own zip code calculator that you can embed onto your website. The point of such a calculator would be such that your client could enter in a zip code and find out what the travel fee to their home would be. It'll help cut back on phone calls asking about pricing, and it can be embedded into a larger form that would allow you to list more pricing, for example, the price of a euthanasia visit versus a hospice visit to the same client, and include that zip code fee right in there. So this does, of course, base the prices on zip codes. If you have other ways of basing prices that clients can easily enter, for example, a city name, that would be just fine as well, and you'll see how that works. The tool we're going to use for this is called Cognitoforms, and Cognitoforms is free if you don't mind having branding on your form, and if you do not want branding in your embedded form, then you can pay a monthly subscription fee for Cognitoforms. So let's go to Cognitoforms. You'll create an account and get logged in, but once you get to your home, which you can click on this Cognitoforms to get to, we'll click New Form and we'll start from scratch. We're going to go ahead and call this form Zip Code Calculator. Here, let's call it Travel Fee Calculator. It's not super relevant here. And let's go ahead and add a field. So the only field we're going to have for now is our zip code, and the client will enter in the zip code there. And then we're going to take a minute and move away from Cognitoforms so that we can build the calculation that's going to give us the fees we want. So let's head over into Microsoft Excel. In Excel, you would want to include your listing of zip codes. Many of us keep these in Excel anyway because you do have this long list you have to take care of somewhere. So I've just got a little tiny mini list here that only has a few entries. We'll just put, one more in. And let's go ahead and populate. So this list can be as long as you want. I think if it exceeds several hundred, Cognitoforms will start to behave poorly, but your average your average metropolitan area does not have so many zip codes that this won't work. So on our very first line, you see I've left some spaces in between my zip codes and my prices. So on my very first line, I'm going to put in equals, and you'll see where this becomes relevant shortly. So if zip code, and here we're going to look and see why I use the word zip code there with no spaces. And the reason why I do that is because when I go to my form settings, what I'm going to do is turn on developer mode and click customize field names, and then I'm going to head over to my zip code, and you can see here it's got a special name, and that special name is zip code with no spaces. I can make this be whatever I want now that I've turned on the ability to change it, but I'm just going to leave it zip code with no spaces. So this is referencing the field zip code. If zip code equals, and we're going to start a quotation. I forgot, we can't have an equals at the first part of our line. We'll add that in later. If zip code equals 78701, we'll end our quotation here, the word then, and a space after the word then, 50. Simple as that. Our first line says if. The rest of our lines are going to say else if. Zip code equals then, with a space after then. That's very important. So these all just say quote, space, then space. And we're going to drag that down to fill up all of our zip codes. We're going to leave the first line special. It does not say else. All the rest of the lines will say else. No space after this quote because we're going to want that all in one. We're going to want those zip codes enclosed in quotations without extra spaces in there. Okay, and the last thing we're going to do is on this line after the numbers, one space. And that will help us with our carriage returns later. So we're going to drag that one space down. Now that we've got that all populated, we're going to copy everything we've typed, which again, this can be many lines. Obviously, most of us don't service just 4 zip codes. So I'm going to hit copy, and we're going to head over to Notepad. You can do this in Notepad or any text editor. Don't use Microsoft Word or a Richfield type editor that has different kinds of fonts. And the reason why is because it mishandles those quotation marks, and we're not going to be happy with the results. So I've typed this all in, but as we can see, there's some weird spacing in here that we don't like. Here, in between each field is actually a tab. So what I've done is selected that tab space and I'm going to copy it. So Control C or copy. Now I'm going to type Control H. And this is a find and replace box. You can also get it here with replace. I'm going to paste that tab space in there. And I want to replace it with no spaces at all. So I'm going to click Replace All. Now obviously I could have done this by hand, but if my list was longer that would be super annoying. You have to copy and paste that tab because there's not a way to type tab easily into that box. So that's the easiest way I've found. Here we're going to put that equal sign in at the very beginning. My computer is a little funky. One equal sign at the very beginning to start the whole line. And at the very, very end, we need one last else statement. And this can be basically, this is what's going to come up if your zip code does not match any of the search criteria. So I'll say else 0. Now in this case, we do need to create, let's see. I believe that we have to create numbers if we're creating numbers, but let's see if I'm mistaken. I don't think that we can have our formula create numbers and little strings of text, but I will see. So we're going to copy this. We're going to head back over into Cognitoforms and create a calculation. And in our travel fee, the calculation, so we're in here, we can just paste right here. And yes, of course. So it won't let us create numbers and words. So what we can do instead is make these be technically words. So we'll say then, and we'll start another quotation. And then here, we'll end that quotation and put that last space in. So now the numbers 50, 55, 75, and 50 are actually going to be strings of characters. So we'll just do that same process over again. And we could put a $ in here if we wanted. Now that they're strings, they can be, oops, whatever kind of string we want. Oops. Okay, so let's go ahead and copy that over, and we're going to go back to our text editor here. We're going to add our equal sign at the beginning, and we're going to add our else outside of service area. And we're going to select our tab space, oops, and do a find and replace with a blank spot, not a space or anything, just nothing. Okay, that should work. Back over to Cognitoforms, and I'm just copying and pasting what was in there. So now we've got a functioning zip code calculator. Pretty simple. If we look at it in the preview mode, we can see we're outside of the service area if we don't enter a zip code. If we enter a functioning zip code, we've got a travel fee or a different travel fee. And if we put in an invalid zip code, there's actually not any. Great, so we've got a submit button here. We don't want when our clients are actually using this calculator because we don't want them to send this form in. We don't need it. If you're using Cognitoforms, you can only have so many submits, and that's kind of silly. So let's move over to the Publish tab. Oh, we need to save. So in the Builder, we just have to save what we are doing, and then we move over to the Publish tab. In the Publish tab, there's a couple of things we can do. Here's where we can change the colors of things. That submit button won't be there, but we can change our fonts, our font colors, that sort of thing. We can decide whether or not we want to show the header while we're embedded. I'll leave the header in there, but you might want to put the header in separately. It doesn't really matter. There's a lot of options in Cognitoforms. It's a really powerful tool. So here's our seamless embed. We're just going to copy this code and we're going to go over to our website builder. So you or whoever controls your website will be able to embed HTML into it. And there's lots of website builders. They usually have a little block that you can click to add in HTML. I'm not using a builder for this example. I'm just going to pop over to a blank website. So this is a blank web page. This is just very, very simple HTML in our editor here. And if we look, we can see this page says our calculator. That's all it says in a heading. So we're going to take that little bit of, we're just going to put a couple of blank spots here. And then we're going to take that little bit of code and paste it in here. So you can see that we've got here just a div with this information, and it does not matter what that says. That's all inside of Cognito Forms, and you can see here it's just this exact same information. But we're going to add one little bit of information to it. Above that div, we're going to put in this information. So this is a tag, it's called a style tag, and basically what it's doing is setting the display value of the submit button to none. This is the name of the submit button, and it's going to make it disappear. So we need to take this exact information, basically it's a copy and paste. You would have to type it in off of what you're seeing on the screen here. All of these characters need to be included. We're going to copy it, and we're just going to put it right above our form. You do want it above, or else the little button will flash into being before you want it to. So I'm going to save this, and so when you're embedding in a regular website and you've got that little block, you just put the copy and paste stuff you got from Cognito and this little style bit of information as well. And again, it's just that information right there. My editor has some fun fonts because it makes me happy, but they're not necessary. And we're going to just go back over to our page. So I saved what we had done. So let's reload this page and let's see what we've got. Here's our calculator. No submit button, so your clients won't be submitting things. And there we go. It's got a travel fee, different travel fee. I'll just give you a quick peek when we're inside of Cognito Forms, the other things you can do. So right now it was making those travel fees as strings, which is a $ sign and all of that, which we don't really want if we're going to be doing math on them. But you can make multiple choice type fields, and your choices can have values associated with them. So you might have euthanasia be $100. That's probably not how much it costs. QOL exam, $100. And your clients can then, when they select these, you can have access to these numbers. And I'm not going to really get into great details of how this works, but you'll be able to give your client, you'll be able to have access to these values, so you can do other calculation fields by clicking calculation here and add up multiple things. Ultimately, what you'll end up with is, you know, a robust calculator that looks something like this one. So this one's mine, and if I choose humane euthanasia, the client is allowed to make other selections. And behind the scenes, there's all of these numbers are being added up. I do offer the client the information of how much each cremation costs, but I don't share with them the information of how much each wake costs. And then once they've done this, I've also set it up so that it does not display anything until they click this button, and I think that's just a user interface reason. It's got nothing to do with the way the form functions. If we were to change this number, oops, I didn't have enough digits in there, then I can have it say this long piece of text instead. So there's a lot of things you can do that are beyond the scope of this video, but that was a simple tutorial on how to make a travel fee calculator. Hopefully it has been helpful for y'all, and I look forward to sharing more video content with you soon.